Namaskar. Hello and welcome to P Guru's channel. I'm your host Sree Iyer. Sundays at 7 p.m. is Sridhar Chityala time as we set the week for you. Let's welcome Chityala ji. Namaskaram, sir. How are you?
Doing very well, sir. Thank you. Nice to see you. Relaxed mode. It's Sunday early morning in California. Nice to see you, sir.
Thank you so much. Sridhar ji, we have a lot to cover today. Viewers, small request to all of you to like this video. We're going to jump straight into a slide deck. And if you have not already subscribed to our channel, please do subscribe to our channel. And if you have not got your own Sengol, please do order it. We hope to make it in time for you. If you want to use it in your Golus for Navaratri, we hope to make it to you. So you can find the pride of place there also. So please do support us. Over to you, sir.
Fabulous. Thank you so much, G. Let's kind of set the context. Next slide. Next slide. Yeah, we were going to cover about 6 important topics. You know, a much kind of touted is US-India trade deal. Are we inching closer to closure? Obviously, there's lots of noise in the system. What's going to happen? We'll cover that and what people are saying. Are Trump's random tariffs under threat? The Federal District Court has thwarted his move in line with International Code of Trade. Very similar decision, 4-3. It went against it. So now let's see what Trump does. China, Russia, they now post the SCO meet, Shanghai Cooperation Organization. They are striking a deal that basically includes oil and gas. We'll cover that. Is the Japanese, we touched on this, whether there is France and UK and other nations are in trouble. The question is the Japanese rate policy could create turbulence in the markets, and that we'll cover. And I think as the mega trends continue, the tech stocks now have post-resolution of the conflict or the DOJ's ruling that Google was engaged in antitrust practices and they ruled it is not engaged in antitrust. That lifted the markets, and today the behemoth of technology companies make up $21 trillion of market cap. We'll give you data and we'll look into that and see what holds for the future. Now we go first to the US-India trade deal. Next slide. Yes. Are we inching closer to a deal? Yes. 𝗤𝗙 Goyal, the Trade and Commerce Minister, expects the deal to be signed by October, November. He has indicated United States is a very strategic partner. It knows they know each other well. Yes, there are turbulences. They can do it. They are on track to re-sign this deal and also commit to that $500 billion bilateral trade by 2030. And he says, there will be some give and take, and there is a forward momentum on that. The discussions or negotiations are still underway. Remember, United States, India bilateral is about $191 billion. That includes all the FTA stuff as well. Dr. Jaishankar is another important figure. He says bilateral deal is what we want. We don't do multilateral. So it's very much within the realms, and we are working to get that done. The target bilateral I mentioned, which is about 500, which is a very big number. If you talk about $7 trillion, $6 to $7 trillion Indian economy on nominal GDP by 2030, $500 billion is a very big number, just coming from almost 7% or 7.5% from the India-US partnership. Scott Bessent, the most influential figure who is responsible for this trade, doesn't matter what Navarro says, doesn't matter what Laura Ingraham says, doesn't matter what Charlie Kirk says, doesn't matter what Peter Navarro says. What matters to the markets, or Laura Ingraham says, what matters to the markets and what matters to the transaction is Scott Bessent. So he has said that it's a bit complicated, but eventually we'll converge. India is too strategic to us. So those who are skeptical, notwithstanding the fact there was a lot of left loony handles and woke handles and other types of vested interests who have been pulling India-US deal for various reasons. I'm not suggesting it's righteous, wrong. But I'm saying to you that that deal will happen, because it is not a deal that India would like to lose, and US also would not like to lose, notwithstanding even Trump's statements. Shriji?
Thank you so much, sir. I just have a couple of things to add here. Let's go to the tariff rates after that. Sir,
Yeah.
There are some people, in my opinion, who are not advising the president properly. He should have, consulted people like you. You're fairly well plugged into the Trump administration to try and understand a little bit more in depth what exactly is the theory. And, in order to win some specific states, there are some bad elements that have also crept in, and everybody is demanding their pound of flesh. That's what got reflected in some of the rhetoric we saw, and very unfortunate to see people like Peter Navarro making those kinds of statements. Very bad, in my opinion. The thing is, he probably was slipped a slip of paper written by some lunatic, and he just regurgitated it, vomited it out. Let's put it in the way it should be put. So this doesn't help. It doesn't help, sir. Today, the situation is, see, there are various stages of immigration in the United States for those who have come from other countries. Today, if you apply for a green card, if you are from India, it's going to take you 100 years, which means you won't live to see your green card. It's impossible. You've already made it so bad, and then you keep, threatening people, saying that this is going to be taken out, that is going to be taken out. So there are people who have done registration, stamping, all the paperwork, waiting for the green card, but the quota is not being raised. So many times you have talked to congressmen and senators saying that, look, there's a lot of quota that is going waste every year because other countries don't make up their quota. Why don't you just give the excess quota to those countries who need it? Philippines, India, and so on. They don't want to do it. So these congressmen and senators, they'll speak from both sides of their mouth. I'm sorry to say this thing. Many of you are my friends. You people, you just try to say something that's music to our ears, but you go back and do exactly what you want. So this is something that the NRIs have to really take it up. Many of us, somehow we are like, got our blinkers on, say, I, me, myself, my family, my future. Unfortunately, nobody is looking up and saying that, wait, there is a huge desert storm coming. And that's what the Indian community is finding itself in the United States, United Kingdom, in Canada, and soon coming to Australia and New Zealand also. This is what I see. Viewers, I'm sorry to say this truth, but this is exactly the truth. Many of you NRIs, get off of your broad behinds and get behind some of the political action committees who are espousing our cause. Please. This is going to really not end well for all of us if we don't act and show our strength. Sir, next slide, please.
I think that those are great words, but we'll cover this in the last section. We'll take it up in the last section. So in the U.S. tariffs rates, okay, because this is very important, take a look at the U.S. tariff rates. Okay, I can't read that, but I'm going to use my phone to read because it's too small. So if you take a look at the U.S. tariff rates, okay, so where does that stand? India stands right on number one, which is namely, it is showing that, India has a tariff rate of 50%. Okay, 50% is is India's tariff rate. It is number one. Who is in the same 50%? Brazil. I mean, is Brazil and India comparable? Very bad, very wrongly kind of categorized and punished. Look at the next: Laos, Syria, Myanmar. Well, they're all in this 40 to 50%, and then you slip down, you have Switzerland, Croatia, Iraq, and so on. But then go to the right. Look at these countries: Fiji, Ghana, Pakistan. They're all in the 19%, 20% category. So we really have a problem, as it relates to the rates that this guy has come up with, or whosoever has come up with the rates. Mostly, is it Scott Lutnick, or is it somebody, Kevin Moran? Who is the person who has come up with these random rates, which Trump is in a very bad path. He's gone himself down the lane where he doesn't see a recourse on the way back. Now, a district court has ruled that the tariff policies, the tariffs that the president is setting, is unconstitutional and is beyond the brief. It should only be set as part of the House Rules Committee, and the House part of the House policies, and it should be ratified by the House, not by executive orders. Now, this is now going to be challenged in Supreme Court. And obviously the administration has taken up, and it's going to be challenged in the Supreme Court. So what's going to happen? I think what's going to happen, in my humble view, is wherever there are fair and just rules, where United States is being given or is at a disadvantage, like access to the respective markets, when for those countries market access has been given in the United States. So they're going to see some of those rules, executive order being approved. But where he says, oh, China, you are doing this, dealing with Iran, I'm going to hit you with another 25%. India, you are doing a deal with Russia, so I'm going to hit you with another 25%. So where you're going to see this random politicalization or random weaponization of the geopolitics policies, for which you are punishing a nation and violating the trade rules sacrosanctum, then your SCOTUS is not going to sign off on those, in my opinion, Sriji. So they're going to get an order which is going to have a win and also a loss for President Trump as we move forward. At least this is my view. They're not going to say, oh, you're President Trump, we have a right-wing kind of, the Supreme Court, at least 4-3, and we're going to pass your orders. It's not going to happen. What's the consequence of that? We'll cover that in another show. The consequence of this is whatever excess tariffs he has collected is going to he has to pay back. And that's another $500 billion or $400 to $500 billion. The United States doesn't have liquidity to that extent. It has to go back, borrow, and pay back. So there are some consequences if this decision is reversed based on the arbitrariness of some of the penalties that has been imposed, Sriji.
I'm reminded of what Joe Montana, a football great from San Francisco 49ers, used to do. This guy was a good quarterback. He could throw the ball well, accurately to his receivers. The American football viewers, but stay with me here. So what will happen is they'll always think that they can run the ball. So they'll run the ball on the left on the first down, they'll run the ball on the right on the second down, and that third down, he'll eventually throw it and get the first down. So the same thing I see in the United States also. They are going to say that we are going to reduce this, we're going to reduce that. Finally, they'll end up printing more money. This is my forecast. This is my 𝗏𝗍𝗏, and I've seen this too many times now. I'm not even going to be surprised. Just wait and see what happens, as we are going to talk about a new crisis brewing in just a few slides from now. Over to you, sir.
Great. The next slide. So I think are at a legal risk, which is what we discussed thus far. What will come under scrutiny, I covered. What will come under scrutiny is the weaponization of the trade policies. That will come under scrutiny, and that's not going to get the nod. So how the ruling is going to come out is very interesting in Supreme Court, but there may be partial reset or there may be a full reset. If it's a full reset, it's a huge embarrassment and policy loss, because stupidly, rather than focusing first, unlike the first time, he put all of his eggs in this tariffs policy and as well as peace deals. There's no peace deal. There's no peace deal between Israel and Hamas. There's no peace deal in Syria. There's no peace deal in Iran. There is no peace deal in Russia and Ukraine. All of those things has gone astray. Foreign policy was never the strength of Trump. So he's going to have a big fall. And the second big policy that he pushed is the tariffs. He did it right the first term, which was basically between 5 and 10%, and he settled around 5% in terms of the average tariff rate. Then in this term, he started with his bombastic policies, and it's not helping him. And then he began to, hobnob with people who really are not the geopolitical partners of United States. Doesn't matter whether it is Democratic or Republican. In fact, the Democratic national security and other people have critiqued very vehemently the type of approach that Trump has taken. So is it at legal risk? The answer is yes. And what's going to come out is going to be very interesting over the next few days.
China, Russia, is there a new energy bloc in the making? Sir, over to you.
Yes. Do you want to set the context? You're a very passionate person on this topic, Sriji.
Sir, see, I get across a lot of guests with varying opinions on the practicality of laying a natural gas pipeline through extremely cold temperatures like what is in Siberia. And unfortunately for Russia, it's the natural gas deposits are way up north, and to bring it down across Russia, and they have to also pressurize it. They have to liquefy the natural gas and then bring it down and then go through harsh terrain. This is something that, unless some technology has dramatically changed in the last 2-3 years, I'm a little skeptical, Sridharji. But it sounds good when they say we have signed a $500+ billion deal for 30 years, and China is going to be supplied by liquefied natural gas from Russia. But Qatar also has a 30-year deal to supply LNG to China. What are you going to do? You're going to bathe in liquefied natural gas or what? Somebody has to put the numbers together. China is just exaggerating the hell out of this whole thing, in my opinion, sir. Over to you.
No, I think your observations are, your summarization and the characterization of the issues are very correct. Let me kind of put it in two buckets. Russia has a problem. Okay, Russia used to supply close to $150 billion worth of natural gas to Europe and the adjacent states. That came down. This data is not published, or it is there and nobody is trying to highlight it, or there is no advocate. It has come down to $20 billion. It's a huge blow to Russia in terms of what they need to do. Of course, they could give all of this stuff, all of the black urls to China and India, who readily consume, but gas is a very different phenomenon. So I think that they really have a problem. So obviously, Vladimir has, bent backwards with China, and China has said, if you cut the price by 70%, then I'm prepared to invest. I'm prepared to bring the technology that is needed and also take up your natural gas. That's the first time there's a difference. The investment that is needed is not going to be from Russia, is going to be from China in terms of this complicated engineering that needs to happen in terms of putting up a pipeline and running it through from Western Siberia to northern China via eastern Mongolia. So the pipe goes through. Now, the story is that has also been touted is that China has an excellent Central Asia policy. So they would probably divert and sell to Central Asia, or divert this pipe to Central Asia, and then do some supplies. Whether they will move further east, right in the Mongolian region, going east into North Korea and South Korea, remains to be seen. Both of them require, and of course Japan require, natural gas. So it's going to be very interesting to see some of these discussions that have taken place. And these are some of the smaller nuances in terms of what China is prepared to do to help. Is obviously that two very big sources which define the energy security: natural gas and oil. Natural gas still occupies number 3 or number 4 position, where most of the countries. Oil is number 1. They are looking at nuclear, they are looking at coal. They're trying to see if natural gas can be pushed up, and oil and natural gas become the top 2. As I say, we'll do a separate show on that. We had covered this way back. I think that's what Sree Ji is touching on the complications and the complexities of the pipe. But China has stepped up as relative to what it was before. That could be the reason that Russia is saying, okay, no, we have a new energy deal. Whether India is part of it, because it's and India is way far, but from the Chinese, the northern Chinese part, the question is, what is it that they have done or doing with India remains a mystery, but that could soon come in. See, it could make it possible to, they say, supply 50 billion cubic meters. What happens to the gap, which is what is costing Gazprom and Russia, is the big question mark in this transaction, Sree.
Sridharji, when liquefied natural gas is supplied to households, they do need to mix some scent, right? So that if there is a leakage, people can smell it?
Yeah, exactly.
So there is at least one process, one step extra to make sure that the leakage can be detected by smelling it. So let's see, sir. I'm still skeptical. China thinks that they know the end of engineering, but nature will always tell you have the last word. We'll see. Next one, please. Sir, this is the highlight of our topic today because many of us don't know what is going on. Sridharji, explain to us what is going on in Japan's new rate policy and how this could completely destabilize the global financial order. As it is quite rattled. Sir, over to you.
Right. Thank you, Sriji. Historically, Japan has maintained close to zero interest rate policy. If you take a look at the last 10, 20 years or 10, 15, 20 years, the rates have averaged between 0.0% to about average 1.6%, which is the lowest kind of borrowing rates. And there is about $10 trillion of Japanese yen bonds floating in the market. There is a concept called carry trades. What are carry trades? Countries and corporations can borrow in the Japanese bond market at low rates. Then they can convert that into a currency of choice, most notably US dollars and euro, and buy assets or build their balance sheet in the countries. So in other words, if you have a deficit and you need to fund and cover the gap, sovereign countries can take yen debt and then fund it. All this, and those trades are called carry trades. What is a reversal of a carry trade? The reversal of a carry trade is when there is a callback on the yen loan, then they have to sell the investment that they have made in a different currency, use a swap trade, and basically pay back the yen that they have borrowed. Remember, Japan has also got close to $1 trillion of US dollar debt. So if there is any issue, Japan cannot say, call back the $1 trillion or part of the $1 trillion from the United States, because the United States has no policy, has no mechanism unless they print more money to pay back this trade. That's why they constantly keep rolling it. So the story here is that countries, corporations have borrowed and close to, in translated into US dollars, very, very significant amount. The size of the carry trade itself, the size of the trades, not necessarily, they may borrow, $250 billion and then 1 to 8, they may be constructing a trade of, $20 trillion. The story is the size of the carry trade is about $20 trillion US dollars, right? And when all the countries which have taken yen loans and use this carry trade to fund their respective kind of credit needs, they're in trouble. When will they be in trouble? If Japan chooses to, which it may, to go from policy tightening and increase the rate, like even by 100 basis points. Okay, 100 basis points is not large when you think about 1.6% to 2.5%. That 1% has a huge consequence for the borrower because he has no capacity to service the debt. Remember, he's taking a profit and still he's carrying the debt on the interest on his balance sheet. So there is a fear. The first person who has warned on this carry trade amongst the most recent Treasury secretaries is Scott Bessent. Again, Scott Bessent has said, we have a problem, Japan, and we have, if your economy is growing, you are able to sustain it. But if you tighten your credit policy, then you are going to create some turbulence in the markets. And this is where countries could be at risk. Recall, we discussed last weekend whether France and UK and some nations are going to need to go to IMF to cover the issues if there is a forward momentum and tightening of the credit policy in Japan. Remember the 3 arrow policy: fiscal, monetary, and trade. This was the 3 of Shinzo Abe. Okay, it lasted very well when Japanese economy was almost looking at deflation. It has sustained a 2% growth. The markets have performed well. The low interest rate in conjunction with very favorable yen drove the experts. We covered that almost for 2 years when we used to do market summary stories. But now, is the world going to bite this issue is the big question that's hanging out there in the market, Sriji.
Sridharji, I want to understand this correctly. The carry trade, is this a worldwide number that you are mentioning, $20 trillion, or is it local or specific to Japan alone?
Worldwide trade. Carry trade is worldwide. Those who borrow in Japanese yen and invest in their respective domicile currencies, be it euro, US dollars. Worldwide.
Big problem, sir. I see another big printing coming. Again, one more time, quantitative easing 3.0. Sir, this is my, again, having listened to a lot of experts, my guess is that there's going to be more printing of the US dollar. What de-dollarization? I mean, we have a lot of, this huge pumpkins being hidden in rice. Those are the pumpkins that are making themselves seen now. Next one, please.
Just before, one very important point. Again, we'll cover this in another show. We won't be able to cover this in this show. It's Kevin Warsh. If Kevin Warsh succeeds or gets nominated as the U.S. Treasury Secretary, he is the one who managed the whole.
I think you mean Federal Reserve.
Federal Reserve governor. If he's selected as the next governor, right? Yes. He's one of the three candidates: Kevin Hassett, Warsh, and Chris Waller. Okay, but Warsh more specifically managed. He's ex Morgan Stanley. Spent about 7-8 years with them, and so he managed through his contacts. He was Ben Bernanke man throughout that crisis, and he also made it clear to the Fed at that point of time, sitting inside the Fed, that too much of quantitative easing can create inflation, and there are no monetary tools available to kind of unwind it. So if he's nominated, and then you got this situation looming from Japan. Remember, Japan is a G7 nation and the biggest holder of the US dollar debt and the largest carry trade country in the world, with a huge consequence on its own kind of balance sheet. Not just in fact, it may soon be delegated to fifth largest economy by India, if it is not already done.
In nominal GDP.
In all nominal GDP. So if you kind of factor that in, this carry trade stuff is going to be very closely watched as we move forward, Sriji.
Yes, indeed, sir. The numbers are just mind-boggling. Next slide, please. This is also very important, sir.
Right. So now we got to link three things. One is, the first thing that we need to think is how the market mechanisms and the market composition has changed in terms of where the future is heading. That's number one. Number two, it also prioritizes in terms of, where the growth and jobs are going to come from. And third, this is where stuck in this moribund is the H-1B visas, as well as, whether the Indian talent is going to be allowed to flow through. So what happened? Google leads the monster week for tech. Another federal court judge happens to be Mr. Amit Mehta, who pushed the case and said Google was not in violation of any kind of antitrust policies as it relates to the browser and the usage of the browser and the data collected. This is Google Chrome. And so therefore, and it is, very happily sharing the data with the other engines and other technologies. So Alphabet and Apple, which extensively uses the Google data, immediately their shares went up when a favorable antitrust decision came in favor of Google. So what happens now? The markets went up to we'll show you the stocks that went up. It's now grown. The combined market cap of these companies is close to $21 trillion. Okay, the market cap of United States itself is about $62 trillion. We'll show it in the graph. Those companies now account for roughly 36% of the S&P 500. If you remember, people don't understand the subtleties between what is a fiscal economic policy, what is a monetary economic policy, and what's a markets economic policy. Now, we always refer to the markets when we discuss this specific topic. We're not talking about fiscal tools, fiscal issues, or monetary issues. Okay, that's a separate topic which we'll discuss when we talk about those two economic angles. So if you go to the next slide, so if you see, NVIDIA now is a $4 trillion. Microsoft is very close, $3.7 trillion. Apple is about 3.56. So if you look at these companies, they make up close to $21 trillion. And I haven't given the numbers. The numbers, revenue numbers, are equally astronomical. These are the companies which are powering the workforce, a significant amount of workforce domestically and kind of globally. So India, over the past 20 to 25 to 30 years, post the transition from Y2K, India entered the market through Y2K. The transition from Y2K, they have been now spreading with a very favorable H1B policies in terms of powering these various technology companies, be it on the cloud, be it on AI, be it on data, be it on semiconductor, be it on automotive, EVs, etc. So what has happened is that these guys are now campaigning. Okay, NVIDIA has another issue as well, that they can't supply chips to China because of the trade policies, but they're trying to get a favorable decision from the Trump administration. But the linkage here, Sriji, is this is the future. If you go back and look 10 years ago, 20 years ago, what is the top 10 market cap company? No more retail, no more banks, no more what you call energy company. There's no Exxon Mobil. Okay, there's no Exxon here. So the energy companies have disappeared. You will see in the top 20 companies some of the biotech companies, transactional companies, and as well as maybe one or two financial institutions. But the whole landscape has changed. We still have not accounted for investments that people are making in rare earths, investments that are going into the EV, the investments that are going into various aspects of AI, the investments that are going into creating energy companies which can support the humongous need of the power that is required to power these companies, and also the data centers that need to come to support and service the applications that emanate from these technologies. So the world is clearly kind of changing, but how close people pay their attention is an interesting kind of number. We have been talking to all our kind of investors and so on that you need to look at the market landscape, and you can't use this 80, 20, 75, 70, 60, 40 kind of formula policy, and you can't have static allocation. You need to look at more dynamic allocation as the market mechanisms change. So this is just a number. This is another important development that happened over the week. And when you look at the H1B context in this, it's a laughing matter. And the optics here, Sriji, is very clear. 75% of H1Bs are allocated to India. This is what they are using as a mechanism to go after the H1B and the Indians, but they are not forgetting to communicate the stories. This is where I agree with your point. All these big CEOs of these tech companies, doesn't matter whether it is Microsoft, doesn't matter whether it is Alphabet, whether it is Amazon, whether it is Meta, whether it is Adobe, they have to make a case. Yeah, they have to make a case that this is a humongous power. Look at your market cap, and we need technology people. And if you can give me technology people from another country, it's great. But you can't simply use the normalization principles of homogeneity when the need, demand, and supply is concentrated around areas which defines the future of United States and the global market.
Next one, please.
Yes. Sir. This is the story that we wanted to highlight it. I know there's a lot of de-dollarization and American haters, and we're called as American sympathizers. $62.2 trillion is the market cap. The total market cap of the world is $127 trillion. Look where China, Japan, India is. Now, when you take just the market cap of the top, 7, 8 companies, they're $21 trillion. That's 50% of what China is, and that's almost 25% of what India is. So I think that there is a story that is required to articulate that this H1Bs is what is required and allocate to nation which provides resources, not discrimination.
Thank you so much, sir. And viewers, there's a lot of invective that gets poured in our chat sessions these days, which means that we are doing something right. By the way, we are continued to be banned in Pakistan. So if somebody is, putting stuff from there, they must be finally mastering how to use VPN, and more power to you. And don't give too much credence to what is happening in the chat window. Viewers, look at what the data is being presented. We have given you a lot of reference link. Go back and read that. This is basically an education exercise. What do you need to do? Where do we think go? People are feeling lost right now because they have no visibility into what their future holds for them. Do I stay in United States? Do I go back to India? If I go back to India, how do I repatriate all the money? For example, if you worked in US for 10 years and you have put money into the retirement system, that's not coming back with you to India. If you decide to completely pull your roots and go back to India, that there is no mechanism. Even this, we have been alerting many congressmen and senators. Look, you got to give them back their money. If you are telling them don't come again, at least give them the money they put into the system. Social Security, you put 7.14%. Sir, I can go on and on. There are lots of inequities here. These are not being, brought forward by people. And if somebody raises these questions, immediately they get shadow banned. Very unfortunate state of affairs, Sridhar Ji.
Very unfortunate, Sriji. I think the message is clear. Data is clear. The information communication is a very bad point. I think we were talking earlier about whether it is Laura Ingraham show or whether it is Tucker Carlson show, they keep talking nonsense sometimes without understanding. And we know who are the people who are feeding this misinformation or disinformation. Remember, many of the people who are feeding disinformation sitting within the United States is probably another set of Indians or of South Asian origin.
Let's call them South Asians, sir. Better to call them South Asians because there are so many lumpens sitting around. Nothing else, get fed by money from other fat cat countries and just try and run India down. Very unfortunate, sir. India is being buffeted from internal as well as from outside. Sir, please finish your thought. We have some questions for you.
Right. No, I think that this is great. And, I'm ready to take the question, Sriji.
Thank you, sir. 𝗤𝗏 wants to know, speaking about market capital without mentioning huge debt, USA debt bubble isn't narrative building, it's whitewashing. I don't know what the question here is, 𝗤𝗏. Could you please tell us what your question is?
No, let me try to interpret his question. He's saying, what he's saying here is, hey, you guys are talking about market growth and market dynamics and market cap of the U.S. market. But U.S. has got $40 trillion or a $37 trillion debt. How can you not speak about the $37 trillion net and the serviceability of the $37 trillion debt? I think that's what the guy is asking the question. Now, my point is, we mentioned very clearly, when you talk about $37 trillion debt, you're talking about fiscal policy. When you're talking about $127 trillion, we are talking about the market mechanism and market cap of the U.S. market, right? The U.S. market and U.S. market capital is not driven by the government debt. Okay, you have seen. We just explained to you the carry trade. People from around the world are taking money from Japan and they are investing because markets are global, companies are global, products are global. Okay, NVIDIA is not just supplying to United States because there's a $37 trillion debt. U.S. is not just. We will show you in the next graph. Next session, more than 40% of the revenues of many of these companies are coming outside United States. In some instance, even 51 to 53% of the revenues are coming from outside the United States. Please put on your thinking hat. We are talking about companies, credit, growth, revenues, profit margins as a result. Okay, so these US companies, the stock is not just held by United States citizens. The stock is held by many people around the world. So when we talk about markets, we don't bring in and talk about the bubble of the USA's debt. That is being addressed through the so-called tariffs. Whether it will succeed or not, time will tell. But United States is confident that it can kind of fund the balance sheet, notwithstanding this debt and the imbalance between receipts and expenses.
Thank you, sir. Next question, please. Hans wants to know, USA cargo plane has landed in Nur Khan base. What is the cargo? So these are supposed to be flood supplies and flood relief supplies, but they are being transferred by one general of the United States to another general, 3-star general no less, of the Pakistani army. I would like to know what kind of flood relief supplies will be given by two generals, be shared between two generals.
There are three important data pieces here. First and foremost, we are now seeing satellite images of the, is it Max? What's the name of the satellite, Sriji, which is a US satellite, which shows
Navik.
Shows the site before the Indian strike. We have got image showing after the strike. And then we see now construction or rebuild of the Nur Khan base, the third thing. And the Pakistan Prime Minister was apparently briefed, and he has come out and said at 2:30 a.m. on one specific day, he says that they have attacked we have had a ballistic missile attack, so we need to do something about it. And so acknowledgement that attack has taken place. Now, all I can say is, they're not sending nuclear weapons, or they're obviously reconstructing the site and restoring it. Obviously, it's probably a very sophisticated site, and so therefore, whatever they're not storing F-16s there is obviously a lot of nuclear material. So that cargo obviously consists of things that is to rebuild and reopen it.
Next one, please. Manoj Soma wants to know, the gold smuggling has dropped severely. How can it affect the Malabar belt and Kerala upcoming elections? Free trade with US is great. Greater hope it happens. See, sir, I know the answer to this question. So would you like to weigh in?
No, you please proceed, Sriji.
So viewers, the tax on gold was dropped, I think, from 15% to 6%, and that has dealt a body blow to gold smuggling into Kerala. Kerala, for a sliver of land that it is, sorry, my dear Malayalam speaking Kerala friends and Kerala friends, non-Malayalam also, you are, for the size of your state, 4 international airports plus 2 more right across the border, one in Mangaluru and the other in Coimbatore. All these people were smuggling gold inside, and this has now taken a huge hit. In fact, it took hit from 2 things, viewers. One was when the 2,000 rupee got taken out of circulation. Why? Because the smuggled gold, whoever was paying for the smuggled gold, like the jewelers, they were being asked to pay for it in 2,000 rupee notes. So to cut that, India phased it out about 2 years ago, I think. That was one blow, and then they followed it up by cutting the duty on gold to 6%. You have to go back to the 1940s to see that there was a rupee called Gulf rupee, and this was the currency for many of the countries now, like the UAE, Saudi Arabia, Iran, Iraq, and many other countries. They all used to use Indian currency, and we foolishly gave that up, in my opinion. They did it, I think, in 1960 or 1961, and that's how US, got in. Anyway, lot of missteps. I can just, my blood boils. If you look at the number of mistakes India did in its initial days, leave that. Today, the situation is that component of the money that is sloshing about in Kerala economy has come down. However, drugs are making up for that. The drug war has not yet been conquered. And there are many governments who are covertly and overtly supporting this. And I can tell you the top 2 are the bottommost states in India. Very unfortunate. Sir, next one. Thank you, Ashok Bhandari. Next one, please. Putra wants to know, when can we hear the CIA ops in India for regime change, PM change, and their Op 37 creating turmoil in India for diversion, deception, and division project has failed on 5 on 5th September. You'll never know anything about intelligence news. It's all covert stuff. You're not going to know about it. Sir, go ahead, sir.
No, well, I think that this has been a continuous process, whether it is CIA-led, whether it is George Soros-led, whether it is Mr. Rahul Gandhi and his Congress party-led, whether ISI-led, whether it is Pakistan-led, whether it is countries that are hostile to India-led. Now you can add even Bangladesh joining the fray into this in terms of poking their fingers. At some of the Indian stuff, right? This is an ongoing process. This goes on, in terms of, it's not something like, it's a failure. It's a continuous process. It keeps going, and India has to keep fighting, and the Indian people have to support what is right, and keep moving forward. So I think, what is it? The latest news that I've heard is, few people have landed in Bihar, and they are trying to help Prashant Kishore and see whether they can break into the BJP stronghold in the upcoming elections. So all this, at the end of the day, this is going to happen. India is 1.4 billion people. There are a lot of vested interests. But I think thus far, at least in the last 10 to 12 years, they weathered the storm. They probably need to weather it for some more time, only through people and the policies of the government.
Next one, please. Naresh wants to know, but SoftBank is rolling red carpet all over the world. Your view, sir?
Well, I think basically SoftBank has huge amount of capital. They don't invest for short term, and they invest long term. Every major country is willing to give capital to SoftBank, and they in turn are willing to put that capital to work. They are in AI, they are in rare earths, they are in EV, they are in what shall I say? They are in the data technologies, they are in space tech. So they have a multitude of investments. It is Masayoshi-san is now a behemoth. He is not a small kind of a person as he was before, and so there are plenty of capital. They know people, and they've got excellent people running the Vision Plus funds. So I think that it's someone. SoftBank is somebody whom now you have to respect, because it's very similar to about 3-4 companies in United States or private equity venture capital funds like Andreessen and General Atlantic Partners and Sequoia and so on. They've been in the market, they know the market, and they know how some of these technologies work, and they know how to harness and commercialize these technologies. SoftBank is purely huge amount of capital putting to work.
Next one, please. Naresh wants to know again, is it because of the carry trade that the Japan's first son resigned today? I think the PM has resigned today.
No, he's resigned basically because he didn't have the support, and it's a coalition, and that was expected. He won by a hair thin majority. So naturally, there's always, I told you, these are all rituals that happen in some of the countries. We need to see whether Macron would survive in France. That coalition is wobbly. So there's policy differences that happen, and that's what between UDP and the other partners. So we'll see. It's not a surprise. Put it this way, it's not a surprise that
Japan lost a huge statesman when Abe was assassinated, sir, and they still haven't figured out who has done it. These are all things where, even the security detail, I have to question there, because the box that is supposed to shield any high-value target, they have a suitcase, right? The suitcase opens up and creates a bubble around the person that they are trying to take pot shots at. That did not engage. For Japanese, who are squeaky clean and very fussy about even little things, how did that happen? Very, very unfortunate, because what you're seeing, and viewers, the Japanese prime ministers come from specific set of families. Go back and look at even Abe. I think he was the 3rd generation or something like that prime minister for the country, but he had the vision. And right now what you are seeing is, he was campaigning for, not for himself as the prime minister, but for his party candidate. That's where he got assassinated, and he had some severe health issues also. Despite that, he was campaigning. Very, very unfortunate. What Sir, you wanted to say something. You know him more than I do.
No. I think that was we called it in DGI. That was an assassination. It was a very clear case of assassination. There was a lot of vested nations involved. We could potentially call the nation, but the story is vested nations involved. They used a hologram of a RoboCop, and it was a very sophisticated. They targeted, and he was taken out because he, to me, was the unification factor of a broad Asia and a consensus-based approach in terms. He is the one behind Quad. He is the person behind the unification and the whole concept of creation of Global South and Quad. So if you take him out, you can see what is happening in Japan, right? So both on the fiscal policies as well as the geopolitical policies and the trade policies, Shinzo Abe was at the front center and revived Japan from the abyss. Then his health, and also there are policy differences. He was gracious to forego his prime ministership. He sat in the opposition, but even at that point of time, when he campaigned, they took him out.
Next one, please. Manoj wants to know why Trump is lagging in tackling the pharma lobby. I think the Trump administration has underestimated the left ecosystem. Any change in his mode of work?
No, thus far, all we have not covered in our program. Many things that are going on in United States, many policy changes that are going on. He still has not come. Most of his focus is around cleaning up the capitals, which been inundated with criminals, and he's fighting his own battle on that. That's number one. Number two, that his focus is also been on pulling all these people, illegals who have come out. At least I believe 1 million people have left. Some people may question that number. So a lot of his work is around going on the domestic side as it relates to that. He's also been focused on some of these judicial appointments, because you find most of the verdicts are coming from appointees either under Biden or under Obama. A lot of appointment under Obama. And the other important thing that we will cover it again in another show is that a huge compromise that has occurred in Department of Defense, now it's called Department of War, where a number of contracts have been given to Chinese universities and Chinese people, potentially putting United States defense capabilities under risk. So his focus has been around a lot of that. He has not yet come to the various lobbies. Having said that, Trump is no exception. He will be supportive of the lobbies as well. Remember the RFK Jr., who is facing enormous amount of problems, and there's a separate set of activities that are going on as it relates to health policies and vaccines and these programs, and also investigation into the COVID. So all of these items we haven't discussed it, we haven't covered it, but specifically taking on the pharma lobby, I don't know whether it is where it is in his priority queue.
Thank you so much, sir. Last question. VS wants to know, is it possible for US to reduce interest costs by revaluing gold reserve and using the windfall to repay old debt? What effect will it have on the US dollar? VS, I've done a monologue on this, on gold, but sir, your answer.
No, I think that there are two answers to the question. One is that they are not going to be revaluing their gold reserve, and that attempt by Elon Musk was curtailed by Republicans and Fed and so on. So therefore, it's not going to happen. US is they thought that using the tariff policy to a small part of the debt can be reversed, but the real problem that United States has is the burgeoning difference between receipts and expenses. The difference is almost close to $2 trillion. If you are generating $4.4 trillion of receipts, you got expense budget which is sitting around $6.4 trillion. That's a huge problem. Some of it will go into amortization, but yet the interest costs are somewhere between $1 to $1.3 trillion and growing. So they need to really attack balance the budget, attack the deficit, stop the borrowing, and see when the rates can be brought down at 4.5% and 4.25%. The US debt is impossible to service based on the current balance sheet, current income expense statement. Remember, during the Trump presidency, it is close to around 2% or less than 2%, in which case the borrowing costs are almost close to zero or negligible. I recall during my kind of interactions those days, we were around less than 2% of the GDP was the servicing cost of the debt. So, which is somewhere between $400 billion to $600 billion. That's serviceable. But at that point of time, the debt was somewhere between $25 to $28 trillion. Now it is $37 trillion. So therefore, interest rates does play a part. But the huge problem that US has is not on the debt, but the growing deficit in expense to revenues ratio, Sriji.
Thank you so much, sir. That brings us to a close of today's program. Please like, share, and subscribe to our channel. Sridhar Ji will be back next Sunday, same time, and looking forward to seeing you all. Viewers, there may be one more video we may be releasing about why US is playing so nice towards China. I'm hoping that we can release it in the next couple of hours. It's very, very important because it builds on what Sridhar Ji had mentioned about how much of influence China has inside the defense establishments of the United States. And that's actually looking at it from a slightly different angle. That will give you an idea. US is up against it. That's all I can tell you. Thank you so much, Sridhar Ji, and we'll be back again very soon. Namaskar.
Namaskar. Have a wonderful weekend, what is left of it. And today is the US men's final day, Sriji.
I don't know, sir. I'm not following any sport, including your and my favorite, cricket. Everything, it seems to be no time. That's the easy way to put it.
Yeah. Have a good Sunday, Sriji. Thank you. Take care.
Thank you, sir.
Bye. Bye.